So episode 3 of Solo Leveling is out, and wow, I think the anime is going in the right direction, changing few things here and there, adding quality of life and building the world up, but most of the times just keeping everything one-to-one, just like the manhwa. And it's the right thing to do, because the manhwa is iconic, those panels and those moments. So I'm here in this video to compare episode 3 of the anime to the manhwa. I've already done the same for episode 1 and 2, so I hope you check that one out before this one. Now, starting off, the anime just opens up with just a little, recap of the ending of the last episode, with him being offered to become a player after being almost killed, and of course him accepting quickly, and he wakes up in the hospital. It's mostly the same in the manhwa. He wakes up in the hospital, but one change that they made in the anime was that he actually checked for his limbs before the Hunters Association came in, as he lost his arm and his leg in the dungeon, which, as I said before in my last video comparing episode 1 and 2, in the manhwa he actually only lost his leg and actually checked his body after the Hunter Association had come in for their investigation. So it's kind of a reverse with the anime and the manhwa. Now, Woo Jin-chil from the Hunters Association coming in is just like in the manhwa, coming to ask Jin-woo questions about what happened and everything. But one difference is that the character that follows him is Kantai-shik, a character that we are introduced much later on in the manhwa, but he's just brought in forward just like the other characters have been introduced in episode 1 and 2. Woo Jin-chil was actually introduced in episode 1 with the chairman Go-gon-hee, but in the manhwa, this is where he's introduced the first time that we see him. Now, when they come in, they basically relay the same information to Sang Jin-woo, talking about how he was in a coma for 3 days, and that Hunter Jo-hee and Mr. Song will probably not be hunters anymore due to one being traumatized and the other losing his arm. Another change here in the anime is that in the manhwa, Woo Jin-chil tried to also mention Kim, but Jin-woo actually shuts him down immediately, didn't want to hear any of it, and we all know why, because he actually left them. Now, another change was that Jin-woo was actually found on the path that led to the double dungeon, unlike the manhwa where he was actually found on the altar, but everything else was gone.
覚醒後の覚醒をしたんじゃありませんか。
覚醒後の覚醒。魔力測定器です。どうですか？再覚醒ならランクはどれくらいですか？
どうやらかえって失礼なことをしてしまったようです。
それよりあの人たちはこれが気にならなかったのかな。まさかこれ俺にしか見えない。
Now, after the Hunter Association left, Jin-woo actually is visited by his sister, which in the manhwa, this is the first time that we see her, but in the anime, we actually got introduced to her in the previous episodes.
もっと体を大事にしてよ。めちゃくちゃ心配したでしょ。
ごめん。ところでジナ、これ見える？
これって？
悪い、なんでもない。
Everything else happens just like in the manhwa, him seeing the screen, asking her about how open messages in games and all that. Now, just like in the manhwa, Han Song-yi actually accompanied Jina to the hospital, but she's a character that we got introduced to in the first episode, which in the manhwa, this is the first time that we are actually seeing a character. Now, next is when Jin-woo actually ignores the quest for player development. I mean, he's in a hospital. The panels just are almost exactly the same with the dialogue and everything. Now, after this, there's an anime-only scene where Woo Jin-chil actually calls Chairman Go-gon-hee to talk about Jin-woo's case, how it's not a double awakener, and that this case is a special case and they should keep an eye on it. That whole conversation, that whole scene didn't happen in the manhwa. Same as the scene with Choi Jong-in and Chai Hae-in, and a scene where in the city a gate just randomly opened on the road. These are all just some quality of life things that they are just trying to build up, make the world, kind of feel lived in. Now, after this, Jin-woo having failed to actually complete the task that the system has given him, is actually transported into the desert area. It also happens the same in the manhwa, but one major difference is that the nurses actually come in to check on him in the anime, unlike the manhwa where it doesn't happen. It is after he actually survives and comes into the hospital and passes out, that was when the nurse came in and saw him passed out. Now, one great addition that they added to the anime was a scene with Jeon-hee where she's asked on a call to go on a raid. She gets the news that Jin-woo has actually finally woken up, and she arrives the next day with the beautiful basket of flowers, and he hears of nurses talking about how Jinwoo has started running every single day and doing some exercises. Now the whole scene with Jeonhee doesn't happen in the manhwa. The only scene that happens are the nurses, seeing Jinwoo doing his exercises and all that. But I think the anime did a really good job giving us this, beautiful emotional scene, even though Jeonhee doesn't actually go through with it in the end. Now next, Jinwoo actually figures out the system. He's been exercising for a while, getting prizes, learning more about it. But one change that he made to the anime was that as he was talking to himself, figuring out all these things, the scene branches out from his perspective of seeing the screen to the crowd of people looking at him as he's just talking to himself on this bench. And I think it was a great addition, giving us the perspective of other people whilst he's using the screen. There's also an anime only scene where there's kind of a Gates broadcast, just like a weather broadcast, about Gates appearing here and there and all that. I think it is neat how the anime is trying to make this whole living of being a hunter and Gates opening and monsters just a daily routine, a daily life thing that happens. Now he does get the instant dungeon key in both the anime and the manhwa, but one change that they made from the manhwa was that we actually see him, get the key. But in the manhwa, he just shows up at the train station and only explaining how he got it. Now he goes to visit his mother, which is something that doesn't happen way after, the instant dungeon, mini arc. But there's some anime only scenes where we get some flashbacks on how his mother got sick, the disease that she has. And we get more flashback scenes as we see how he actually became a hunter, and some of the early on raids that he did, and how he was looked down on just from the very beginning. Just some more sad scenes to throw in there to get you to care more about the character. Now him going to the instant dungeon, there were some changes leading up to it and him actually going there. For one, he actually went to the nurses in the manhwa to actually ask for permission, which in anime he didn't. And also actually went prepared with a knife and some supplies, unlike the manhwa where he just went there with the key, opened it up, and with no weapon, no preparations at all.
出口を塞がれたのか。参ったな。最悪逃げようと思ってたのに、これじゃ逃げらんないじゃん。
Another change in the anime was that he had to fight 3 goblins before he fought the wild dogs, the lichens. In the manhwa, he was just attacked by that one dog, and everything else almost is exactly the same as the manhwa until the episode ends. And so next episode is where we are going to see this fight and a lot more craziness and the instant dungeon challenges that he's going to face. These are all the changes in the anime versus the manhwa. Just some subtle little tweaks here and there, giving it some quality of life in the anime and actually elevating some scenes and giving more emotional beats to it. Now I have a similar video to episode 1 and 2, so I hope you check that video out. And I have more anime content on the channel and more on the way, amongst other entertaining videos that I know you guys will enjoy. So I hope you check the channel out, leave a like for this video, it does help it, and subscribe and turn on that post notification bell not to miss any new video as well. As always, Nerdy Sage here. See you guys in the next one.